Hi, Taurus Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of both Saturn and Neptune into your 12th house. And both of these transits are occurring in the spring of 2025. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, so you can do the math if you live down under. And I'm going to start with Neptune because that's the first one. That's going to be on March 30th when it goes into Aries. But I just want to say that for Taurus people, this is going to be the 12th house for you. But I want to give a disclaimer here because I have Taurus rising. So this is for whether you're Sun in Taurus or Taurus rising. As somebody with Taurus rising, and my rising degree is 26 degrees, I have both Aries and Taurus in my 12th house. Okay, so even though Aries is the sign before Taurus, because of the unequal house system, you will see that some people are going to have different, everyone's going to, if you have that Placidus system, everyone's going to have their own time when these planets are entering into their 12th house. For me, I think my 12th house cusp is like 9 degrees of Aries. So with both Saturn and Neptune being slower planets, they're not personal planets like, Mercury and Venus and Mars. They have a slower transit through all the houses. And so I was looking at the ephemeris for the next 12 months, and actually both of these planets are going to go back into Pisces in the latter half of 2025 into 2026. So you can just imagine how long it's going to take for me to have Saturn go into my 12th. Well, actually, I have Taurus there too until 26 degrees. So everybody's going to have a different situation going on there. And so just keep that in mind, but it will get there eventually. Of course, if we live long enough to see it, right? So that's why I just keep it like general. If you would like a private reading where I look at your transits for the next 12 months, I have that. And you can click the link below for a list of all my services and a description. So, this is a very interesting situation because we have Neptune going into its own house. Neptune rules Pisces and rules the 12th house in astrology. The 12th house of astrology is a hidden area. It's an area of solitude, of reflection. It's the hermit's house. So it's really dealing with things of a nature that is rather contemplative. So hermits, monks, I think nuns contemplate, right? Teresa of Avila, she was a nun, wasn't she? So yeah, mystics. It's the house of karma. It's the house of, on the mundane level, it's the house of hospitals and prisons because it's a place of suffering. But, I don't really like to emphasize suffering because that's the Piscean thing of like, because Pisces is a sign of the victim. So Neptune connects with that energy of victimization. But I don't like to do that because it's disempowering and also it's kind of self-pitying. But it is, I'm just telling you what this house is associated with. And really, you can make a case when you talk about karma that the theme of karma and all of that can be about suffering in the sense that a person keeps coming back here to experience different scenarios to balance off what happened before. for learning purposes. Do we really need to do that? Can we get off the wheel of karma, or the wheel of birth and death? But I'm I'm a Sagittarian. I'm very philosophical, so please excuse my diverting off the track here. So when Neptune goes into its own domain, and it's the house of the spiritual dimensions. So when Neptune goes to this place, it's going into the house that it rules. So you can imagine that it enhances those activities, because it's an expert in that area. So Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is the first earth sign. There's a very youthful, young quality about Taurus people, an innocent quality, or what would we say it, lacking complexity. And this will add complexity to your life, I am almost positive, because it will add depth to your life. Taurus people, I think, and this is not, I'm not putting down Taurus. I call Taurus a meat and potato sign, and I have Taurus rising myself, because it's like a very, straightforward kind of an energy. It's down to earth, so it's very straightforward. And it's the first sign. The signs correspond to the seasons. Well, the season of life, of youth that the spring represents, Taurus is part of that spring period. Again, we're talking about the Northern Hemisphere, which is really accentuated with astrology, it would seem, because the astrological new year, everybody talks about the birth of spring and the beginning of the astrological chart in March, the third week in March. So I don't know if you're down under, if you ever feel like, what about us? This is fall for us. This is the dying of the year, not the birth of the year. So how is this the astrological new year? Well, it is what it is, right? But anyway, so Neptune going here can maybe speed along any kind of spiritual upgrades or spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings that you may have yet to have. And for Taurus, this is a good thing, because you don't want to be earthbound. You want to see yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience, because if you are too immersed in the material, you're going to make decisions based on that. Your thoughts are going to be based on that. And, life goes by pretty quickly, relatively speaking. So we want to be very conscious in life, not just being on automatic. I could see like a Taurus person kind of like being very focused on, okay, did I pay the mortgage? Did I pay the car note? And really like almost enjoying that kind of mundane type of things to do, the to-do list. And that's fine. But you have to also realize that you didn't just come here to keep your body alive, that you came here for something more. And I don't really believe that we have to have these kind of supernatural experiences, which can be part of the 12th house as well, or, Akashic records readings, or past life, hypnotism, regressions, or ayahuasca ceremonies. I don't believe that we need to have those things, because the 12th house can touch upon some of those types of activities, and people who have planets natally in their 12th house may feel compelled to do so, because they might feel like they have unfinished business. But what I do think is that the organic unfolding of our spiritual path and the accompanying insights and, I say spiritual upgrade because we may find that our intuition is heightened and stuff like that. I think that that is perfectly reasonable and desirable. I think some of these other things can be a little bit too extreme, and that's just me, you know, that's just my opinion, obviously. And some people claim that these things change their life. So everybody has to, be very diligent, do their research to see if it's something that they think would be good for them. But I don't, I prefer doing things in my own time and having them unfold in my own time, not trying to speed up the process. But this transit could really enhance those things automatically. And yes, Neptune can be drugs. So people who, have some kind of maybe belief that if they take something, they're going to get this enlightenment, they might decide to do something like that. I got a little pissed off because somebody, when I did like a reading for YouTube a while back, somebody started like berating me in the comments section and saying, you shouldn't say, to do ayahuasca, and that's like, dangerous. You're encouraging people. And I said, I'd never do something like that. The only reason I'm even phrasing it like this is because it's not my place to tell people not to do something. But it is my feeling that people should not just listen to other people or videos on the internet and then go off and do things. I think you should really, do a lot of research on the pros and cons of something, because it might have certain effects that you don't want. And, and I've heard of them. I've heard of some things like that. So I do think that it's something that you want to be mindful of. So another thing that I would say, connected to the 12th house and connected to this Neptune transit, is that it is the collective soul. The 11th house is the collective in terms of humanity on the mundane level. We're all connected, even though we're different races and nationalities and things like that. But in the 12th house, it's like we're souls. It doesn't even, we're not even identifying with gender and race and all those things. We're just soul. And so we're connected like on the psychic level. If something happens to you, it happens to me, and blah, blah, blah. And Neptune can really tune in a person to, I would say, the suffering of humanity. If you have Neptune natally in your 12th house, you will tend to be a very compassionate person, because you just intrinsically know that that there are people who are suffering, even if you're perfectly fine. You know what I mean? And it gives people more compassion, which is never a bad thing. But one of the things to keep in mind, and this also goes for the increase maybe in psychic gifts for some people, is that you have to be careful with Neptune, because Neptune doesn't have any boundaries. Now, I told you that Saturn is also going here. Saturn is all about boundaries, so that's good that they are going to be together for at least a few years, because maybe Saturn can keep Neptune in check, because Neptune can dissolve things, and that means that the lines become blurred. So when you feel, if you have heightened compassion and you feel other people suffering, that can lead to sometimes forgetting that it's not you, it's somebody else. And so, like I said, if somebody has this in their 12th or some other empathic, even like the moon in the 12th house, they can tend to have these tendencies to take on the emotions of other people and maybe not even know that they're doing so, because the 12th house is so subtle and influence. So be mindful of all of that. And I would say, just like having Neptune In the first house, be careful about the company you keep and the things that you consume. I mean, yes, physically, but also the type of entertainment and reading, everything, whether you're reading, going to a movie or whatever, because you can absorb that, and it can be almost like an unconscious thing. The 12th house can be the unconscious, some people say the subconscious mind, and you may have no understanding that you are feeling out of sorts because you have this kind of you were picking up on someone's distress, or you saw this really upsetting movie. Oh, and that's another thing too. Get ready for lucid dreaming and things like that, because the 12th house is the dream state, and so it can really make your dreams. I mean, you could maybe astral travel and things like that, which is part of that psychic development. And again, it doesn't mean you have to do this. It just means that you may find that you're having these dreams that are prophetic or more lucid. They feel more real to you, like you did go some other place, like astral traveling and stuff like that. In terms of, but also watch out for addiction, because the 12th house is the house of addiction. You have the planet that represents escapism and, that sensitivity. The reason a lot of these people, and I'm talking about the ones who, I mean, anybody really, but when you have like you see hardcore drug addicts or hardcore alcoholics, and you say, you might judge them and say, wow, they're really far gone. Wow, they're really effed up, right? And those could be the most compassionate, sensitive people on the planet, who just are super duper sensitive, and they never had anyone to kind of tell them, look, you really have to protect your energy. You really have to, practice discernment. Don't allow people to prey on your good nature, your kindly nature. So yeah. When Saturn goes into your 12th house, this can be like the dark night of the soul. This can be a time, Taurus, when you are feeling as though the things that you try to do to escape, you can't do anymore. And I think it depends on, other factors, because you could be a sun in Pisces and have Taurus rising, and I think you would do just fine, because your sun's ruler is Neptune, and so you have that natural connection to the 12th house, and you understand what it represents, and your sun sign embraces that. And I would say that, maybe about some other signs where, like what if your sun is Capricorn and you have Pisces rising? Your ruler is Saturn, your sun's ruler, at least. So you have, actually, in that scenario, your sun's ruler is Saturn, and your chart's ruler is Neptune. So you have both of those transits going into the 12th house. So I feel like there's certain signs, a Capricorn person who has Pisces rising and Saturn going into the 12th, I feel like that person can be a lot more okay with what that area is all about, because you already tend to be very disciplined, and you're not somebody who tries to shirk away from responsibility. The 12th house can be about escapism. And so I think that there are certain signs that are more prone to that, and a sign like Capricorn can be more okay with that kind of thing. And if you have planets in the 12th house, I mean, you might have the sun in the 12th, and then you're very aware of this, or the moon, you have like this, but I think the sun is even stronger in the 12th, because it's your I am presence. So it's more, to me, it's more able to know exactly who you are, even in this house that is kind of murky in a way, because it's spiritual. It's like the mists that the 12th house can represent. So this, if you have any addictions, I think this will be a time in the next few years where you will either decide to tackle them because you feel like now's the time and you feel like strong enough to do it, or because something will happen that will force you to do that. You know, you will meet up against a brick wall in some way. And Taurus is a very self-indulgent sign because the rulership is Venus, and Venus is sensual, about pleasure. And so there's a tendency, and when I say Taurus, yes, it could be the ascendant too. But let's say it's a sun sign. Okay, let's say your sun sign is Taurus. And I hope I'm not being confusing by talking about these different signs and saying, let's say your sun is in Capricorn or whatever, because I'm talking about if Pisces is your ascendant and you have the sun in a different sign. I understand if, you're new to astrology or you don't understand these aspects to it, that might be confusing. So anyway, now I'm going back to talking about the sun in Taurus. But people who are Taurians tend to be very in love with things that kind of stimulate their five senses. Good food, beautiful aromas, beautiful sights to see, especially in nature. And sometimes when a person can pursue pleasure to the extreme, and we call these people hedonists because they just like are addicted to pleasure, you know what I mean? And when that happens, it can lead to addictions, obviously. Well, I just said the word addiction, right? Addicted to something. So the thing is, a person has to kind of like sometimes like reel themselves in, because they're doing things in a compulsive way, and could be interfering with their life as a whole. So you may find that something is like this, and Saturn can be very strict and severe, austere, and saying, no, you can't do this anymore. Again, it's for our highest good because this is the 12th house. It's to build that spiritual discipline. So that can be something that it seems like you're being punished even. Saturn is the lord of karma. And people look at karma as punishment, but actually it's cause and effect. It's like karma means action. So anytime you take an action, there is a reaction. Even if you can't see it, something else is being altered in the universe, right? So you will learn these laws very well, most likely. Sometimes I think, because there can be a pessimism with Saturn, that when we talk about the dark night of the soul, it's like this idea of what is it all about anyway? The 12th house and the 9th house have that philosophical connection, a lot of connections actually, because Jupiter, the ruler of the 9th, is the ancient ruler of Pisces. So they have some similar themes. That philosophical introspection is really important. And if it causes you to feel this sense of emptiness or confusion, that's not a bad thing, because it's going to spur you on to a higher way of living. And usually this happens when someone is faced with something very dramatic, like let's say a serious illness. And I told you that the 12th house is the house of hospitals, for instance. And even like prison, like if somebody is a criminal and they finally get arrested, maybe they got away with things, and they have to sit in that cell, and all they have is time on their hands. yeah, maybe some people go crazy, but some people have that spiritual awakening and they really understand the meaning of life. And everything else is, stripped bare for them. So it could be something along those lines where you have to, as a Taurus person, you find that all of these things that you thought were going to bring you happiness don't do it, don't do the trick. And you have to kind of reconcile with that and find something that is higher than material pleasures. And this can be a great time, by the way, when Saturn goes into your 12th house, accompanied by Neptune. This can be a great time to begin a spiritual discipline, because this can last you a lifetime and be such a blessing to you. Like even Hatha yoga, which some people think, oh, that doesn't really count because it's just physical exercise as well. It actually serves a spiritual purpose. It was actually used so that people could calm down during meditation, so they weren't fidgety. And, because, so it does have the effect, even though it's physical movement, of maybe calming your nervous system and things of that nature, so that you have greater concentration, so you're not just like your mind isn't ADD, wandering all the time. And then also physically, so you're not just feeling the urge to move around a lot. And, because you're an earth sign, you may find that that is what you take to very well because it is connected to the body. But that can be a springboard to other things within the next however many years that Neptune will be there, probably at least 13. I think I heard another astrologer mention, I don't know if it was 2038 or 37. So that would be, probably 38, I would think. So definitely a long time to develop yourself spiritually. And it can be a wonderful adventure. So anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you'd like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.